Okay, so I guess now that we have a spaceship in the game, we're going to have to start thinking about space combat and space maneuvering and whatnot. Having gone back and looked at the rule books, the rule book for Classic Traveler, I thought that was a little bit too plain. Traveler 5, as usual, offers a lot more depth, but there's a little more complexity in bookkeeping, and the rule book is pretty tough to decipher. That said, the Traveler 5 space combat, at least when it comes down to shooting at other ships and hitting and doing damage, it's pretty similar to the way we're doing individual combat now with rifles. So I think we'll just do it that way because that'll be basically the same as what you have been doing with maybe just one little extra wrinkle in it, but not too bad. So when it comes to shooting and being shot at, um, that's going to be more or less like Traveler 5, and it won't be anything I think that you're too unfamiliar with. What is going to be different, and then the topic of this little video here, is the way you maneuver in space combat. So I kind of wanted the whole thing to be a little spacey, if you will, which is something that's a little less like Star Wars and a little more like actually what it would be like to move in space, to maneuver a spaceship in zero G. Um, so without having to make anyone do lots of fancy computations, I just sort of came up with something that would sort of capture the essence of that without it being too complicated. Now it's going to be a little more complicated than just saying, all right, well, I'm going to take my ship token like you see in front of you, and I'm going to move it, 3 hexes this way and 2 hexes this way, and that's my movement. So it's not going to be like picking up your token in Roll20 like you do with your guys and say, I'm going to move 30 feet, or I'm going to move this many feet this way. What we're going to do is something kind of different, which is on a movement turn, or in the movement phase of a turn. There's also the combat phase of a turn. But in the movement phase of a turn, you're going to basically accelerate your ship, right? So if you're in zero G, what you can do is accelerate, and that will impart some motion to your ship. But once your ship is in motion, it's going to stay in motion until you stop it. And the only way that you can stop it from going in a particular direction is to turn your ship and burn your engines to force yourself to go in the other direction. So the cute little mnemonic that I came up with was turn and burn. So basically you have to orient the ship and then apply thrust or acceleration, same thing for our purposes here, in order to change your ship's velocity and direction of that velocity. Now, we have to work a little bit within Roll20's grid constraints, and one of the things Roll20 can't let you do is measure an angle very easily. So we can't really make the grid sort of arbitrary, and we can't really use real numbers, like a measuring tool where I could just come up here and say, all right, I'm going to go, I'm going to wind up going 5,000 kilometers in this direction or whatever it is, right? The only thing that I can do, you can see my ship token here, and you can see the ship token in this case. It's kind of obvious where the front is, right? I mean, it's the front, it's pointing that way, and then the back is pointing this way, and the engines are in the back. So Roll20 isn't really going to let me. It'll let me rotate, to 12 different points. So it could be there, it could be there, it could be there, or it could be there, and then go all the way around the clock, and you'll get 12 points. The thing about Roll20 is if I'm oriented that, say I'm pointed out here towards a corner, it's not going to let me move my token onto an edge. So basically the only direction a ship is going to be able to move in our game, there are only going to be 6 of them, right? So we can either go this way, it can go this way, which is the direction it's pointed, this way, this way, this way, or that way. So there are only 6 movement directions. Now, as far as orientations, again, you saw me just rotate it before. You could have up to 12 orientations, right? So you could be rotated there, not that, you can be rotated there, here, here, there, or back. The amount, rotation is going to be a minimal cost on any movement phase to rotate your ship, but the amount that your ship can rotate is really kind of ship dependent. So you can imagine a very maneuverable ship would be able to come around here and do like a 180 or a 360, right? A ship that wasn't so maneuverable, like a big freighter, may not be able to change its direction in one turn, right? So it may be able to, big ponderous ship, if it's oriented in this direction in one turn, right? The next turn it may be able to orient, that way, right? And then the next turn it can orient that way. That would be a slow, a slow, low maneuverability kind of ship. So the amount that you could rotate in a turn is going to be somewhat limited, depending on the ship. Additionally, the amount of thrust or the amount of acceleration you can manage in any given movement turn is limited by the ship's abilities and its engines. So we're going to measure acceleration or thrust, and I'm going to use those terms interchangeably here. We'll measure those in G's. It doesn't matter what a G is for our purposes. Just say it's a G, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you may have a ship that could provide 1 G of thrust, or maybe it can provide 2 or 3 G's of thrust or acceleration in any given turn. That depends on the ship. But every G that you spend, it's going to cost you some fuel to spend a G of acceleration or 2 G's of acceleration. And that fuel cost is kind of TBD. It's up in the air at this point, but that's something we will have to keep track of, going forward, how you're using the fuel. The rotation, I think, is going to be a negligible sort of fuel cost. But every G is going to cost you some fuel, and what it's going to give you is, let's call it a velocity point in one of these directions, really in the direction that you're pointed. So for instance, look at the ship now. Ignore the little 0-3 up there for the time being. So here's my ship. And right now it's at a dead standstill. It's not doing anything. So let's say, I'm going to scroll over a little bit and pick up some numbers. So let's say on my first movement phase, let's say the ship is also only capable of 2 G's of acceleration. So in my first movement phase, I'm not moving at all. I want to pick up 2 movement points, and I want to go, let's just say I'm going to go the direction I'm pointed. So to get 2 movement points, I'm going to apply 2 G of acceleration to here, which just means I'm going to fire my engines and I'm going to go in this direction. So I'm going to put on 2 G of acceleration in that direction, because that's the way that I'm pointed. It's the only way I can go. And I'm going to get 2 movement points in that direction. So on that phase, on that turn, the ship is going to move 2 hexes in this direction, right? Now on the next turn, if I don't do anything, I don't burn any fuel, I don't put on any acceleration, I've still got 2 velocity points in this direction, in this hex right here. So on the next turn, I don't have to do anything. I can just sit down and turn the engines off, not burn any fuel, and I can still going to go 2 in this direction. If I want to stop here, what I would have to do is rotate the ship this way, assuming I was able to do that based on the ship, but let's say I could in this case. I'd turn the ship this way, so now I'm pointed back this direction, right? And I would put 2 G of thrust in that direction, and that would give me 2 velocity points in that direction. So Control C, paste it. All right, so now I'm going to put 2 back this way. So you can see what the motion is going to be now, right? I've got 2 in this direction, 2 in that direction, so it's 1, 2. But then I come back 1, 2, and that just leaves me where I was, right? So in a situation like this, where you have 2 points, these 2 opposite each other, you could just call that 0. In that case, you're effectively stopped, right? So stopped at that point. So basically, that's kind of how you have to do it. But it's going to be constrained by the amount that you can rotate your ship in any given turn and the amount of G's that you can apply on any given turn. So let me zoom out just a little bit and see if I can sort of work through an example. Let's say I have my ship, and we're going to start it back here at the red star, and I'm trying to get to this location here. So on my first turn, I'll go ahead and say that the ship can rotate 180 degrees. I'm just going to make it a little bit easier. So this ship is able to go, well, let's say it's not 180, it's not all the way around. Let's say it's able to go 2 that far, right? So we can rotate 180 minus whatever that is, so minus 30, so it's 150 degrees, I think. So we're oriented this way. What I'm going to do is go ahead, I'm going to put on 2 G's of acceleration in that direction. Okay, so on this turn, my ship is going to move 1, 2. On the next turn, I'm going to continue to accelerate at 2 G's. Okay, so I'm going to continue to put on 2 G's of acceleration in that turn. That's going to take me from 2 there now to 4, right? So on the next turn, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4. This is all a bit fast. You can kind of predict that you're going to overshoot here. So now I'm moving 4. Again, if I don't do anything on the next turn, I'm going to move 2, 3, 4 here. So I don't think I really want to do that. What I kind of want to do is think ahead and sort of orient myself. I'm going to rotate the ship this way instead. Okay. And what I'm going to do in this case, I don't have this planned out, by the way, so this could all go horribly wrong. But I'm going to go ahead and put thrust in this direction, and I'm going to do 1, let's say, in that direction. 1g of thrust in that direction. That's going to give me a velocity point of 1 in that direction. Right? So now on my next turn, I'm going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1. Okay, that's where I'm going to wind up. On the next turn, I want to rotate here, and I want to start taking off some of this velocity here. So let's just do 2 here, since it's convenient. Now, you know, I've got 2 and 4 kind of opposite each other, so that means a part of my movement is going to be 4 hexes this direction, and then I'm just going to move 2 hexes back. So what I can do here is just say, all right, delete the 4. So this is my new velocity, right? So on the next turn, I'm going to move 1, 2. I got that right, yeah. And then I'm going to move 1 this way because I'm still carrying the 1 over here. Now on the next turn, if I don't do anything, I'm going to be 1, 2, right? Let's just think that through. So the next turn, 1, 2, and then I'm going to be here. So the next turn, if I don't do anything, I'm going to land right on this hex. What I probably need to do is go ahead and take 1 off. Right, so let's just put 1 on here. Yeah, I didn't really make this example up. I'm kind of just winging it. So I'm going to take a G and put it over here. Right, now 2, 1, that's basically going to slow me down in this direction. So I've got 2 and 1. That's the same thing as saying just 1 here, right? So what's that going to do for me? Let's see. So that's going to move me 1 here on the next turn, and then 1 over there. I like having the velocity in this direction. So what I really want to do is move 1, right? So I'm going to rotate now. If I do this, I'm going to move 1 here, and I'm going to move 1 there. So what I probably want to do is rotate. I'm a little limited in the amount that I can rotate. When I said 100, so I'm going to rotate to there. That's really all I can do here. And then I think that's going to take me 1, 1, right? That's going to put me there. Then I want to put 1 on here. That's going to stop this motion, right? So it's going to be, that's going to go to 0. So on the next turn, all I'm going to have is this, is 1 in that. Now I'm on the mark, but I'm still moving because I still have 1 here. So I have to get rid of that. So on the next turn, I'm going to move 1. So what I kind of want to do here is rotate to there, and I'm going to put on 1g of acceleration back here. Yeah, right. And then that's basically going to stop me on the next turn, right? So that will break me exactly where I wanted to stop, because 1 and 1 now, that's 0, right? And I've stopped where I wanted to stop. There's another clever way that you can get to 0, not just by doing that, but if you can imagine, let's say I had 1 here, 1 here, and 1 there. That's also 0, right? Because if I take my counter and I move 1 in this direction, 1 in that direction, 1 in this direction, that just puts me back where I started. So it doesn't have to just be opposite like that. If you have this kind of configuration, that's essentially stopped, and obviously it's the same thing for the the mirror image of that. That's also effectively stopped. It doesn't matter if that's 1, 1, 2, 2, whatever it is. If it's that kind of, as long as those are equal in those positions, then that's stopped, completely dead in the water. So that's another way you can get to zero velocity if you think about it, or get yourself stopped in the right location. So I think this is going to probably take a little getting used to, and it's going to take a little bit of planning ahead. But it's going to add a little bit, I think, of realism to the game. It's going to add a little dynamic, let's say, to the game. All right, so that's it for this, and we'll go over it again on the next session. All right.